Thank you. Please be seated. Prefect joke of the day is, how do you drown a hipster? You throw them in the mainstream.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to say how spiffy Groves looks in their outfits. Do you want to just stand, Groves? I don't think everyone can see. Yeah. Oh. I think very nice. Our first hymn is hymn number 11, Callan Land. Please stand. Oh, shh, quietly.
Please be seated. Wonderful singing, folks, I must say. Many a chapel in Wales will be very proud of you, as I am, and certainly Mrs. Samuel. What a great way to start the day. Anyway, I'd like to introduce to you a dear friend of mine this morning, a friend who has a very, very strong link with Shawnigan Lake School. He's an alum of the school, graduated in 1985 from Groves House, so it's appropriate to see the Groves in their colours today. He went to university and came back here and taught in the socials department. He helped me with the rugby. He was a rugby coach and also ran Copeman's house. He was the house director of Copeman's. Incidentally, he met his wife here too. She was a teacher, a socials teacher, and she was the house mistress of Renfrew House. He went away to Vancouver to be principal of St. George's School. We're pleased to say that he's back on the island these days. He's living down at Brentwood, and he is the current headmaster at Brentwood College School down the road. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Mr. Bert Patel. He can tell you why he's here this morning. So, a warm welcome to Mr. Bert Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Samuel, for those kind and embellished words. I appreciate that. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we lead. Mr. Robertson and I share a great hero, Nelson Mandela. That's a quote from Mr. Mandela, Mr. Robertson. I'm here this morning to acknowledge the service of Mr. Robertson and Mr. Robertson, wherever she is. Is she here today? But I want to acknowledge her service too. If you don't know, there's a deep connection between Brentwood and Shawnigan. And Mr. Robertson and myself actually represent that in some ways. So, as you heard from Mr. Samuel, I came as a grade 9 boy from Calgary, Alberta, and I was here. In those days, it was a boys' school, and I was in Grove's house. Good to see you in your colors this morning. And I graduated in 1985. I returned in 1993, an important date, 1993, and I was here for a one-year contract just to see if I could test it out, and I guess something happened that I stayed here for 8 years. Met my wife here. My 2 girls were born here. So my connection to the school is very, very deep and personal. Mr. Robertson, near the same time, in 1986, arrived from Scotland, surprise, surprise, on the campus at Brentwood College School in 1986. And between 1986 and 1993, he ran a house, Privet House. He was housemaster of Privet House. He was a French teacher in his thick Scottish accent, an English teacher also in his thick Scottish accent, and he was the first 15 coach at Brentwood College School. So that is the connection that he has with Brentwood. Obviously in 1993, the same year that I started here, he started here. So we actually started our careers at Shawnigan at the same time. 8 years later, as Mr. Samuel said, I left and went to St. George's, and now I'm very happily back on the island. But the connections that the 2 schools have, as I said, are embodied in the 2 of us. And the reverence and the support for each other remains at an all-time high. I just want to say one thing about Mr. Robertson, that because sometimes we can get into our little bubbles inside our institutions. Mr. Robertson is one of the educators across Canada that has set a very high standard that all of us, including me, are trying to attain, trying to get over that bar. And he's never lowered that standard for anything or anyone. And for us, as heads across the country, and as people, and as a personal friend, for me, that standard will always be there that he set. So on behalf of the school, Brentwood College School, and the students and the staff and the alum that I know that you're very close with Mr. Robertson. We have this gift here for you that I hope, maybe you can open it with me, that will find a place in your new home as well. Go straight for the ripping.
The sort of rugby player's approach to things.
Well, Thank you, Bert, and safe journey back to Brentwood. Switching gears. That was very nice, wasn't it? Sophie Zook has been with us for the last 2 months in Grove's house again. Grove's getting a lot of attention this morning. She's leaving for a fantastic trip to Europe by the sounds of things, and then going back to St. Margaret's School in Brisbane to start her 3rd term, I think it is. But she's been here, as I say, for 8 weeks, and she's going to say a few words of goodbye. Sophie.
When I arrived 10 weeks ago, I could never have imagined the amazing memories and lifelong friends I would make. From my very first night walking up to Ripley's holding a huge sign saying, "You don't know me, but will you be the Vegemite to my toast at Spring Fling?" to only yesterday where I said goodbye to many of my teachers for the last time, my experience at Shawnigan is one I'll never forget. Coming from being a day student and an only child, life in Groves is something I wasn't entirely prepared for. Nonetheless, this amazing group of girls welcomed me, along with my odd Australian sayings and food, with open arms. It's safe to say they have become my family, and I have gained 70 sisters I will cherish for life. Exchange is such an incredible experience that I would encourage you all to apply for. You learn so much about yourself and your capabilities, like how I still have no clue how to tie a tie, and about others. As it turns out, my first few weeks weren't just hard for me. They were also a challenge for everyone else who was trying to understand what I was saying when I used words like far out, crikey, g'day, bubbler, dead set, and so many more. I quickly learnt that flip-flops and thongs don't have interchangeable meanings and had countless arguments on what constituted a hoodie, jumper, jacket, or sweatshirt. However, none of this could top being chased by geese around Lake Omar. I wouldn't be able to stand here this morning without the support and contribution of so many people who have tirelessly put in hours of work to organise my exchange and the activities I have taken part in while at Shawnigan. I'd like to say a massive thank you to all my teachers who made sure I knew what I was doing with my work from here and back home, and to Mrs. Chol, and as well as giving me so many unforgettable memories. To Mrs. Cholak for putting up with me and always being there if I needed her, and to the girls in Groves who always lent a helping hand to make sure I had a blazer for chapel or stopped me walking to my first field hockey game with my shirt on backwards. Of course, to Mr. and Mrs. Samuels, thank you for making this whole exchange possible. And lastly, to Mr. Robertson, I would like to say how grateful I am for you allowing me to attend Shawnigan for the past couple of months and wish you the best of luck in your retirement. If you wouldn't mind coming forward, I have a small token of appreciation to give the school.
Thank you, Sophie. Well done. We'll switch gears yet again. I would like to ask, if I get this right, Hannah, Salam, and Maya to come up. Is that right? At least Salam is coming. Oh, they're all coming.
As our time at Shawnigan draws to a close, we reflect on the experiences and highlights over the past 5 years that have shaped us into the people we've become today. Less than 5% of Shawnigan students are able to say they've been here for 5 whole years. We are thankful for these experiences and will remember them forever.
Now we'd like to ask the Gradates what they're looking forward to in their next 4 years.
Henry?
I'm excited for more house outings like the one in Victoria.
Probably excited to be at the top of the food chain because I know what it's like to be a grade 8.
McKinley?
I'm looking forward to building new friendships and just having a blast. Yeah.
Marcus?
Winning the House Cup 4 years in a row.
Now we'd like to invite up Mr. Williams to talk about his time at Shawnigan.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Firstly, for me, it's an honor, it's a privilege to be here this morning to speak in front of you. I want to thank the Headmaster for being patient with me. It took me 3 whole years to get back. It was a very tough process, but the school was patient and they waited. I want to thank the Reverend for this opportunity. We spoke about it a few months ago and there were always complications, but it's actually happening right now, so I'm very happy. And Mr. Samuel, he's like my school daddy. He's a real father figure because he's always there for me, and he's not shy to put me on my place. He will tell me when I'm wrong, and he will say it in his tone of voice. So I'm very grateful, and it's good to be back. I was here in the school year of 2013-2014. It was about 4 years ago. And when I spoke before, because I had the chance to speak once, Salam was in grade 8, and she also spoke. And it's so interesting to see how time passes by, and she was grade 8, and now she's grade 12, and many of the other grade 8s that are now in grade 12, to see them grow up, to see them become beautiful, almost young adults, it's so amazing. And it's something that I will always cherish, because the only links I have between that time and this time is the staff members that were here, and obviously the students. But I want to get to my message. But before I get to my message, I just want to say that this year has been filled with memorable highlights. Many interesting things has happened. I was fortunate enough to do my master's degree at VIU, and I had a successful year. And more than that, the events that took place, from International Week to Ski Week, the Interhouse events that took place, yesterday's big event, the arts, it was so nice. I remember sitting in the arts, in the building, the theater, music, the Wilkinson Theater, and the students were performing and they were doing their thing, and then Carl went up. And Carl was he was going to sing with a band, and he was just full of enthusiasm, and he was taking the mic and pointing it to the crowd. And one of the parents that sat nearby said, "It's nice to see a teacher, so excited." So we were like, oh, he's not a teacher. He is not a teacher. But it's just one of those things when Shawnigan is full of life. Being back in Duxbury has really been a privilege, being amongst the boys of Duxbury. I've learned so much from this new group of young people. And for me, it's an honor to be part of that house. But it's not just Duxbury. It's every single house. It's all the boys, it's all the girls. It's everyone that I've touched and everybody who has touched me. And it's not necessarily with the words that you say. It's a simple smile, it's a simple gesture. It's keeping the doors open. It's just being presentful. It's the small things that count. It's the little things that make life at this school so meaningful, so cherished, something that you can cherish so much. And I'm grateful. I'm so honored to be here and to share this experience with you, because I know for a fact that our time at the school is short. As our grade 12s are leaving, we're all going to leave at some point. Our headmaster's leaving. As staff, we're all going to leave at some point. But what are we leaving behind? All of us cannot leave a legacy. That's the reality. But we can be part of a legacy. And we're already part of a legacy. We're part of something beautiful. We're part of something great. And that's the amazing thing. I want to encourage you with a few words. As our exams are coming up, our focus should be our exams. For some of you, your focus will be the World Cup that's starting today, the Soccer World Cup. But my message is about being prepared. And I want to encourage you to be prepared. And there's 5 P's I want to leave with you. Try to remember 1 P. It's a lot of P's. But the first P is perspective. You should have perspective. The second P is planning, the plan. The third P is purpose. The fourth P is participation. And the last P is something the Headmaster spoke about last week, perseverance. When it comes to perspective, you should know the way you go about doing things. You should have a particular attitude. Your perspective should be right, especially when it comes to your exams. Your energy should be there, and you should basically give it your all. Don't doubt yourself. Know that you are doing what you are doing, and believe in yourself. Believe in your ability to succeed. All of us can do it. Secondly, planning. You know the saying, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. So make sure you figure it out and plan accordingly. And the support, one of the things I really appreciated was working in the LC with Miss Lupton. She's always giving her best in the LC. And even if you're not in the LC, you can always ask for assistance wherever you are, with whoever you're with, to help you with planning. Thirdly, knowing your purpose. Remind yourself why you are doing what you're doing. And let that serve as your motivation. Let that serve as the motivation, your purpose. What is your purpose? What are you doing here? Make sure you have a purpose. Fourth, your participation is so important. What's the use? You are trying your best to be prepared, but you're not participating. Participate and give it your all. And the most important part of participation is supporting one another. And here we have a network of support. We all should try to support one another, encourage one another, especially during this time of the year. And lastly, persevere. Why? Because sometimes things don't go the way we plan. You can prepare all you want, and sometimes you sit in the exam room and you're thinking, oh my goodness, what is this? I did not plan for this. So then in those cases, you should be aware. It should never catch you off guard. You should always be aware that things could go wrong and know how to overcome those things. So that's the 5 things I wanted to touch on. No, that's 4. I must still touch on 1 more. All of these things I mentioned now, when it comes to perspective, planning, purpose, perseverance, and participation, it all speaks about being prepared. And not only for your exams, but for the next phase of your life. For the next challenge that's going to come your way. Whether it be at Shawnigan, whether it be outside of Shawnigan, be prepared. I always say the same, time is nothing. And when I say time is nothing, I'm not saying time doesn't have value. Time passes by so quickly. It's like nothing happened. And before you know it, it'll be closing day. The balloons will be let up into the air, and that will signal the end of our school year. Always know that it goes by quickly, and you need to make the most of your time here. We all be given a different measure. Some of us have more, some of us have less. But what are we doing with what we've got? Never forget to give back to the people that has given to you. And in that way, we learn. Will we learn? We learn. Thank you. Thank you.
We did it finally, Jayson. Thank you. That was a perfect message for this morning, and it was a pleasure to hear you speak with such passion. Our final hymn is the Lonsdale's House hymn, How Great Thou Art. Hymn number 7. Please stand. I'll let you do it. Sounds like a headmaster's job. Have a great day, everyone. As you prepare for your exams, may there be lots of questions that you think, oh, those are easy questions, and few surprises. Have a great day.
Thank you. Sit down, please. No, I'm not going to throw a dampener on what's been a marvelous morning, but just remember, we're singing. We're not shouting, right? Miss Tyrrell would be horrified if we're not holding these notes and making these notes properly. Enthusiasm, A+. But let's just remember the singing part. This morning was tonic for many of us. I hope you know what a tonic is. I'm not talking about tonic that goes with the gin. I'm talking about something that makes you feel better. And so it's some lovely messaging this morning. I'm deeply, deeply honored with what happened with my great friend and fellow head, Mr. Patel, coming. I'm absolutely in admiration of Mr. Jayson Williams for not just the message that you delivered, but the way you delivered it. So thank you, Jayson. Therein I could spend another half hour telling you of the value of human relationships, because the reason he's here doing what he's done after the perseverance that he showed and that we showed over the last 3 years to get him back here, it goes back to, again, a humanitarian outreach that took place through Mr. Pasquale and the Hoops for Hope organization and Jason's brother coming here because of that. That's so all these little acts of human kindness all come together to produce great things. So if we've learned nothing else or had nothing else reinforced this morning, we've had that. So I should have been saying thank you more often, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow of things. But I'm deeply grateful for what's happened this morning, and I thank all those that kept it a secret from me. I was talking to Mr. Samuel this morning at 6:30, and he didn't give anything away. Good. That's enough for the moment from the headmaster. I'm going to pass on to Mrs. Milne, who will get you refocused on what's coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. So we're going to switch gears right now and look ahead to what's next. First, I want to say well done to all of you. You made it to the end of your classes, but there's still lots of work to be done. Beginning at 9 o'clock today, you should be in tutorials as per your teacher's instructions or in your houses. There's a schedule of what subjects and grade-specific tutorials will be held. You may arrange individual meetings as well with your teachers if you want to, but please take advantage of this time. If you've not already planned your study schedule, then get to it. During the exam period, it is expected you will continue the good practices you've learned throughout the year, which is daily exercise is good for you. It's good for your mind, it's good for your spirit. So when you take a break, get outside, breathe, talk to your friends, don't text them, talk to them. Run around a bit, get a break from your computer screens and the television. It'll help you refocus when you get back to your desk. 3:15 today, we start the great big desk move. So you should be in your houses to find out what you're supposed to do. And then please go to your assigned classroom and bring 18 desks up to the gym so that tomorrow morning we can start our exams in there. Some general instructions during your exams. Dress during the exam period, during the day, and study blocks and all meals is classroom dress. Whenever you're in a school building, you should be wearing your classroom dress. This applies for breakfast to the end of 4 o'clock in the day, and then again at dinner. Dinner changes as of today. It's now at 5:30, so your evenings will be a little bit different. There's quiet hours in the houses, which should be adhered to. This means no loud music, please, no visitors. Be considerate when exams are on, and the new gym needs to be off limits so it stays set up properly. Mitchell Hall, the library are great quiet spaces if you need to study, and we ask that if you're in the Ritz, that you're not playing ping pong or pool so that other people can be studying. Each day from 9 to noon, 1 to 4, 7 to 9, you're in your exam, you're in a house, or you're in a tutorial. These are study blocks. Even if you're on supervised prep, we ask that you communicate with the staff member in your house on where you're going and where you're going to be studying. When you're done an exam, please go back to the house. 20 to 30 minutes before your first exam, could you take your textbook back? It'd be terrible to get a charge in the middle of the summer for a textbook that you just forgot to return. 15 minutes before the exam, you should be at the building where your exam is. If you have an exam in the gym, please gather by classes on the grass next to the tennis courts. You'll be called in by class. You need to know your student number for your exams, so memorize the 6 digits or stick your student card in your pocket, please. Cell phones. Cell phones are wonderful things, but they should be left in your room. Please don't bring them to the exam. If you bring them to your exam, they will be taken away. If you're seen using them during an exam, you will be getting 0 on that exam. If you're not sure where your exam is, we've posted lists in the Ritz. We've also posted them on Shawnet, so take a look. Some exams begin at 8:30, some begin at 9, some begin at 1, so please check that carefully. Swimming, please make sure if you're swimming, you're only swimming when it says to. It's going to get hot next week, so there will be posted times where you're allowed to be down on the dock and swimming. That'll be on the 24-hour notice board. When you're finished with your notes and your binders and your other supplies, let's recycle them properly, please. Don't just throw them all in the garbage. So that would be great for the environment. And as of today, remember, timing for meals are different. Lunch starts at noon today for the rest of the year, and dinner's at 5:30. Most important thing, know where you're supposed to be when and what you're supposed to be doing. Read the notices in your houses, and if you're not sure, ask somebody, please. This is your final opportunity to demonstrate not only your learning, but who you are, your ability to manage your time and your responsibilities. Your teachers have put an incredible amount of time and energy into their own learning to prepare you. Now it's your turn. So remember the line in the school prayer, until it be thoroughly finished, which yieldeth the true glory. Good luck on your exams, especially the grade 8s. Your first exam is this afternoon. Thank you.
So as we, just before we depart, a reminder, grade 12s, you're asked to stay behind this morning. You're not in trouble. And I just want to thank Sophie again for that lovely address. Having exchange students, as we know, just enriches our community. So as they say, or maybe they say with a Scottish accent in Australia, good on ya. Is that close? No? Okay. And it has to be at Groves. It's all karma, because I put this tie on for the first time for months, not knowing that you would be wearing an item that I would have died for as a kid, because those are the colours of the soccer team in Scotland that I grew up supporting. Everything I wore was that colour. So just saying, I could still take an item from Groves if there's a spare one around. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.